Good morning. You're listening to Central Wisconsin's 24-hour information station, AM 1320 WFHR.
20th, 2022. Have your host, James J. Malouf here. It is 10:06 on the clock. At 10:30, we're going to welcome in our friend Kent Anderson from the Boys and Girls Club of Wisconsin Rapids area. Talk about a Toast of Two Great Futures event. Looking forward to that. Right now in studio, we have Mayor Shane Blaser with us. Want to wish you a good morning, Shane.
Good morning, James.
And we also have, of course, our good man Joe from Wisconsin Rapids Community Media. We say hey to the gang over there. Appreciate you guys being here. Mayor, thanks a lot for coming in today. First up, want to congratulate you on winning another election.
Thank you.
That was an interesting election, and I'd love to pick your brain about it a little bit more. We'll see if we have time for that later. But before we get to that, how was your Easter?
Pretty uneventful.
Yeah.
Spent time with family and, those kind of important things to do on Easter. And
Yeah. Good to hear. Very good to hear. Did you find your Easter basket? Did you? But
I did not have one. How about you?
Right on. Yeah, me neither, apparently. But
I'm still looking, I guess.
Same here. Yeah, can't seem to find
Very
anything.
good hiding spots.
I did want to kick off things touching on something that we've touched on a little bit already coming into this. The Rapids Common Council approved the transportation utility.
That is correct.
I talked to a couple of listeners out there, and they had some feedback about this. Some just nothing negative, just kind of curiosity of what that means, because it's kind of a big sentence. And I think like unfortunately a lot of people do out there, they just read headlines. I would encourage you to go to Wisconsin Rapids City Times and read the article that they have there. They did a nice job on the subject. But for those listening out there, what can we tell them about this?
Well, another great location is we have a page on our website that has all the historical information and any media, any news things, they're all posted out there. So that's a great resource. But ultimately what it's going to do is, and people really don't understand until they get a special assessment for their property, when there's road construction going by their house or sidewalk repairs. Then it's kind of special assessment becomes very known, because usually it's a bill and it's multi-$1,000 bills. So by eliminating special assessments or replacing with the transportation utility, which they figure out an engineering method through studies that how many trips, how many times we go in the driveway and out of the driveway on an average a daily that we do. And that's for businesses, residential, multifamily, every classification of business. So they figured out, they went through the whole city and they figured out total number of trips. Looked at every piece of property, put all those trips into a pile, and I don't know how many hundreds and millions of trips there were. There's a lot, you know. And they've set a budget of $500,000. They're taking the number of trips by that $500,000 and they figure out per trip cost. For a homeowner, it's roughly $20 per year. So we'll pay roughly $20 per year instead of ever seeing a special assessment. And so that money will go into a fund, and that fund will be used to offset the cost of what people, I won't say people, properties, because it also applies to commercial, nonprofits, churches, schools, all that, they get charged with special assessments. So that will be in place of that. Kind of in a nutshell.
Yeah. And I think that's a great synopsis of it and everything. That kind of gives you an idea of it. One of the things that I think happens when you just read headlines, though, and this happened with a couple listeners I talked to, they thought this meant, we're getting a bus line. And it's like, well, transportation means a lot of things.
Correct.
But that did bring up the topic. And so I'll say maybe the 6 or 7 people that I talked to, every one of them were in favor of and liked the idea of something like that. Is that something that's still being talked about, kicked around?
So public transit, what we have is a cab service in town currently. I remember, this is from years ago, they looked at a type of a public transit that would maybe include a transit system that included Point and Marshfield into it, and then it would also be us. It kind of, I don't think, ever got any legs to go anywhere because of costs. But at this point, there's been no talks about having a public transit system such as a bus system in the city.
It feels like one of those things, like rural communities like ours, where, time is going to tell us if we need something like that. If our population grows, and we'd all love and welcome that, then maybe that would be something that we have to, can we kick again? But for right now, not really necessarily a necessity.
Yeah, we're kind of, caught in between in the size of our community, are we big enough for, right?
Yeah.
And we're not a Wausau or, some of the, I think Point has transit, but I think that helps with the college. And yeah, so we struggle here with the size of the community. We're just kind of in that gray area.
It's something that it is good to note that you guys have thought of this, though. It's not something that I bring that up to you and they're like, what are you talking about? I think that's a good note.
Yeah, I remember there's been discussions in the past.
So we all know what's coming. Hopefully warmer weather. Hopefully Mother Nature.
Exactly.
But along with that, orange cone season.
We've actually started orange cone season.
I want to get into that, yeah. I am curious to know, with the unpredictability of Wisconsin weather, how is the schedule going with that? Things on point still, or are we behind? Are we forward?
Yeah, I think what I've heard, they're on schedule and they're working up off of Cherry Street, off First Street North area. You also can see on Jackson Street, the phone company's been out there and there's some prep work going on for that Jackson Street project that's begun. That's a state project. There's been a little controversy and probably there's been talk online about, redoing Jackson Street. And that's actually a state project. And that started, I believe, back in 2019. State projects don't happen that year or the next year. There's kind of a long process to it. And so there's been discussions about it. And it's an 80-20 project. So the state pays 80% of that project and we cover the other 20%. So, yeah, it's a project that's through a program in the state through grant dollars that is causing that project to come forward.
A lot of talk in recent months about the infrastructure bill being passed, and that is that going to affect us at all? Rural communities like this, some are going to be affected more than others. Have you heard anything as far as that?
Yeah, I haven't heard much on that. We're still looking at meeting with council and figuring out how to spend the rest of our balance of our ARPA funds, what projects we can work on for that, and that's going to be coming forward to council here hopefully sooner than later, and then we can start discussing that because that needs to be allocated by the end of next year, I believe. And so we at least need to have those dollars earmarked for a project. Otherwise, we have to turn it back in and another community will get it.
Wow. So before I get into anything else, was there anything you wanted to talk about today?
Well, just before we wrap up today, I wanted to talk about a bike rodeo that's going to be happening.
Right on.
Which is a great event that's being put on by the Wisconsin Rapids Masonic Lodge, the Grand Rapids Lions Club, the Wisconsin Rapids Police Department, and the Grand Rapids Police Department. And it's going to be held on May 7th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's a free event, and it's all about bikes and bike safety, and they're going to have safety courses, and it's been a long time since we've had a bike rodeo type in the community, and so these organizations partnered up together to, there's going to have drawings for some free bikes, and there's just going to be a lot of great events happening that day.
There are many things more joyous than watching a kid get a new bike. That alone seems great. But I don't know if it's this event in particular, but I know before the pandemic, there were times where Sheriff Becker or some others would take bike rides with community members and that. And I missed that. That was I know how much Sean liked it, and I know others did too and stuff. So hopefully we'll get some of that back too. This is a great event.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great event, and they're going to have bike safety people there. They're going to check bikes. And they're just going to have courses, and lunch is going to be provided, and so it should be a fun day and a fun 4-hour block there, and hopefully we'll have the weather for it.
Yeah, here's hoping. We'll definitely touch on that again before we let you go. I did want to make sure to mention wirapids.org is the website that the mayor was mentioning before. And when I was going there and doing a little homework, I did notice that we have some openings that we're looking to fill. And I know that there are people out there looking for not only jobs, but careers, things, and especially I'm seeing more and more, and I'm hearing more and more from people. It isn't just that. It's not just that I want a job or I want a career. I want a career where I can make an impact. I want to be able to help people. I want to be able to, if I'm going to spend my 8 hours of the day, I don't want to just spend it in a cubicle or something like that, which that's perfectly good work, and you can do some good for people that way too. but more so, I want to be active. I want to do things that I know that there is A, B, C is helping my community. And oftentimes when you work in public service, when you work for your community, that is, it's almost kind of written into the job.
Oh, absolutely. There's a sense of community pride, and you would hope that most employees would have that, because that's what we're doing is we're working for the community and the community members. And ultimately, we all want our community better, And so, community or employment in public sector is a way to do that. You're not going to become rich and famous doing it, but it provides a living, and it's a great job. And so, we're recruiting. We're going to be looking for a police chief, fire chief recruiting is going on. We're looking for an assistant wastewater superintendent. We're looking for HR personnel. I saw a job fair being at Midstate today, and I know our HR department's going to be there for fire department, police department recruiting list for entry-level positions. So there's a wide array of positions that are available, and a variety of career fields too.
Are there things anybody should keep in mind about applying for those jobs, or research they should do before the job interview, or even putting in their application?
Yeah, I think, you can start on our website to learn about the job and see if you have the minimum, because they'll put the qualifications out there. The application process, a lot of it can be done online. And, it's the best place to start. And then if you do see a job and you do have some questions, you can always reach out to that department or up to our HR department.
So I want to talk a little bit about this last election with you. Okay. I want to say first and foremost, I want a big thank you to the candidates and everybody that came in. Everybody handled themselves like adults. That shouldn't be noteworthy, but in today's climate, it is. So a big shout out to everybody on the way they handled that. I feel like the community did a pretty good job of doing that as well. So I think that is noteworthy about our area, and I'm proud of our area for that. But I know that there are things when it comes to this, whether it is a contested election or not, even if you were just running against yourself, in a sense, you're going to learn things. You're going to find out things from constituents, from your community that maybe you did or didn't know beforehand, or maybe it's an issue that you thought was an issue, but it's bigger than you thought. What kind of things have you learned from that election process?
One thing, we all have a preconceived idea of what it is and what it might be. But you truly don't know unless you know somebody in it or you're kind of closely involved with it, really what the job entails and its responsibilities. I always say, because I've had different positions with the city, and every time I'm in a different position, you get a different perspective. So now I'm sitting, I guess, in the top chair, and it's a whole different perspective. I remember being, as an employee here, thinking about the mayor and thoughts about, and all kinds of just suggestions and ideas, and you really don't know until you sit in that chair. And I always, I talk about the people that have been previous mayors, and they are the only ones that truly understand really what it's like and what it's about. And and so I think it's good to be informed and understand what those positions are and what they involve and what their job responsibilities are.
Are you still in? How is the goals going for you? I know we touched on this, the last time you were in and everything, goals, if you were reelected, that you had. Have those evolved at all, or are they still pretty intact, the things that, you want to accomplish before the next election?
Yeah, so last night technically was our reorganization meeting, so that was the kickoff where we're all sworn into our new terms. So I guess today is my first day of my second term. So it's still about, we're still working through the budget process. The transportation utilities done. That was a thing that I was pretty active in during the first campaign. So now, we're rolling the second here, and it's now as we were talking earlier, vacant positions cause a lot of stress within that department. I even think about our partner here, Joe. He's a Downer person, so he's trying to fill that gap, and I think it's important that our staff is full, and that we so that's, for me, that's a priority now, making sure we have a full staff and that all the departments have their needed personnel for support, because otherwise, to provide the same level of service, people are working more, taking on more responsibilities, and you can only do that for so long till it becomes ineffective. So right now it's getting these jobs filled. That's a priority, and seeing where our new council goes, and I think it's next Friday, we have my capital outlay request for next year's budget due already, because we want to start working on that. The capital is probably the biggest thing in our budgets that are adjustable. So, that's where you can affect, the size of a budget by kind of looking at those capital outlays. And by us starting that conversation now versus in the fall, we can have better conversations. And, if we decide to go a different direction, we have time to adjust versus November. And you're trying to decide, approve the budget in November. And you're trying to decide on capital outlay, which does not work. So you need that time to be able to really kind of have good discussions. And, we always say, and our finance director and I talk about it, you look at every project in itself is a great project. And we want to do that project, but you have to really put all the projects next to each other and prioritize them. And we're not always so good at that in government. We'll just do these one-offs and it's a good project, let's do it and let's pay for it. But at the end of the day, there's still only a certain pot, and you have to really prioritize your projects and pick out the ones that are going to make the greatest impact for its dollars.
It's one of the things that I always appreciate when we get the chance to hang out, but it's also something that I know, talking to many listeners out there, that they appreciate about you. And I don't know if you consider yourself this way or not, but you're a forward thinker. You think ahead. You're thinking of not just the now, but the whole. And I think that really favored us very well with the pandemic and everything, but just going forward, just in general. So some of the things that you mentioned there, really noteworthy.
Yeah, we have to think about tomorrow, next month, next year, and because budgets get tighter, and the problem is everything costs. As we know, costs are going up, and it's exceeding. It's going up quicker than the revenue coming in, so we have to make adjustments, and we need to make those responsibly. And we know we have to work on roads. We know we need police and fire. We need our streets plowed and fixed. But it's trying to find that balance of maybe some of these little extra things we maybe shouldn't be doing, and holding that money or putting that money into other priorities. So it's really looking at it all, laying it all out, all the departments, all the projects, and really taking a fair look at everything.
What is something that you learned from your first run as mayor to now that you can take into this second term?
I knew I spent a lot of time talking to residents, and I like answering my own phone, but I guess I didn't really realize the volume. So for me, sometimes it's time management, because I still have a family at home. I'm one of the last mayors, I don't know how long actually has a child at home that's not growing and out of the house. And so, I've had two, but one's kind of gone a little bit, but it's college. But so it's about trying to get a proper balance, because being a mayor is what I do, but it's not who I am. And so, I've got to do a little better job balancing work and home and health than probably my first term.
Yeah, same here. I raised my hand on that. I don't know, Joe, I'm feeling maybe, but not.
But there's so many of us that just grind it out, go to work. And, I think some of this younger generation maybe has a little better thought process on, they have a better balance. I come from, you just work and you just grind it out. And this next generation is finding a better balance on, they want, better out of work life and more time to do things like that. And
growing up,
I got to listen to that younger generation a little bit more.
Yeah, I hear you. Because growing up, I thought this was a Midwest thing. I thought this is just who we are. We work ourselves to the ground and all that. And I go out to California, go to some other places, and I see, it's like this around. So then I see this as an American thing. And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing. It's part of where we got our country, where we are in the world. But also having that balance is important, because our families are important, our life is important. And the kind of piggyback, rewind on something we were talking about with the job openings, not to put him in an awkward spot, but like a guy like Joe, we don't want to burn him out.
Nope,
we need Joe. We like Joe. We want to keep Joe.
Joe does a great job.
Part of the reason, or part of how we don't burn Joe out, is also Joe taking the initiative to be like, hey, I got to find this balance as well. Finding him, as a community workers to help out, but also doing that. It's something I've had to learn. I think a lot of us have had to learn, and the pandemic kind of brought that to light for a lot of us. So, again, finding silver linings about that. I wanted to get into the dog park and find out if there was any news about that.
So there has not been any updates or news on that. We're just still trying to. There's the location has a lot of large trees down. It's from a windstorm that we had years ago that it was just kind of never needed to be cleaned up. So, we're probably looking at figuring out what we want to do for dog park, and that will be more of a winter project, cleanup project when our street department and park staff are looking for that kind of work to do. And so it's work in progress, but it's still work in progress.
I mean, the fact that it's a work in progress and not still or, well, we don't know, that's a positive. That's good.
Yeah, we're just trying to make sure that, it's orange cone season, so all of our allocation resources are directed at this point. And, I don't see any, the only other thing we could do is pay somebody to come in and do it. And to me, I don't think that's really good use of tax dollars when we do have staff looking in the off season to do more of that work, that it's there and available to do then.
We've mentioned orange cone season. Another sign of summer is seeing the bikes out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I wanted to make sure to mention that as well.
Yeah, and I also noticed the bike program with the bikes that you can rent are out now. I see over by the zoo and other locations around town that they're available now to rent and ride.
If anybody hadn't seen those, wanted to make sure that you guys are aware of that and everything, because while it may not be a great weather out there, I've ridden in this kind of weather before. Anytime the chance I get on the bike is always fun. Feels good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we let you go, I want to touch on the, speaking of bikes, the bike rodeo coming up one more time.
Yeah, the bike rodeo is May 7th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. It's sponsored by the Wisconsin Rapids Masonic Lodge, Grand Rapids Lions Club, Wisconsin Rapids Police Department, and Grand Rapids Police Department. There's all kinds of bike things down there. You can bring a bike. They have a number of limited loaner bikes if you want to borrow one, and there will be a lunch provided.
And again, earlier we were talking about openings. You can find out more about those by going to wirapids.org. Encourage you to look into it. A great way to be able to not only put in your community, but find maybe a new passion, a new career. You never know.
And I haven't been out there yet, but they also should have the road construction out there and let you know which roads are opening and closing and kind of where the construction areas are.
Yeah, big shout out to whoever's running the website. They do a great job, and I noticed that, and that's a nice addition to that. Oh, yeah, very cool, very, very good.
Joe does a lot of our website management.
Get you an assistant, man. That's awesome, Joe. That's great. And we want to thank Joe and our friends at Wisconsin Rapids Community Media hanging out with us today. Mayor, thank you for the time. Always appreciate it. Have yourself a great week, and we'll talk again next month.
Absolutely.
We'll be back with more Morning